Let's talk about the trig functions sine, cosine, and tan. To define these functions, we use something called the unit circle. The unit circle is simply a circle that has its center at the origin and a radius of 1. We now think of a point that travels along the edge of the circle, tracing out the angle v with the x-axis as it does so. Now, of course, this point will have some coordinates in the coordinate system, which are what we use to define sine and cosine. Cosine being the x-coordinate of the point, and sine being the y-coordinate of the point. Tan is a little bit more difficult. You can think of it as a continuation of the point onto one of the circle's vertical tangents. This video will focus mostly on sine and cosine, so let's try and graph both functions. Starting with the angle v being equal to 0. Once again, cosine is equal to the x-coordinate of the point. Remember, the circle has a radius of 1, so that must be the x-coordinate. So cosine of the angle 0 is equal to 1. And now we're able to set the first point, the starting point, of our graph for cosine. We're now going to raise the angle by 90 degrees, also known as pi divided by 2 when measured in radians. The blue cosine arrow has now shrunk down to this point, indicating that the value of cosine at this angle is equal to 0. The sine of pi divided by 2, however, is once again the y-coordinate of the point, which at this angle is 1. And of course at the beginning, at the angle 0, the sine was 0. Moving on and raising the angle another 90 degrees until we get to 180 degrees, in other words pi radians, we read off of the unit circle that the x-coordinate of the point, and thus the cosine of our angle, is now -1. The y-coordinate of the point, and thus the sine of the angle, is 0. Doing this again and raising the angle by another 90 degrees, we can plot the x and y coordinates, and doing it finally for 2 pi, which is all the way around the circle, we end up where we started. We've now set 5 points for each graph, but setting these points continuously as you raise the angle gives you a sinusoid, which is the name of a wavy graph like this. The same goes for the sine function, although the sine function has been shifted by pi divided by 2. So it starts at 0, whereas cosine starts at 1. The graph for tan looks a bit weirder because it diverges towards infinity at some places. Try and imagine why that is.